Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday. And I have a friend from across the pond who I got to see the first thing this morning when I woke up, and their picture was on my phone. So that was just amazing. So I have Rebecca Wilson in the house today, coming in from Bonnie, Scotland. Hope you got some nice weather today, or not your typical rain. But, anyways, Rebecca, you're here. Yay, yay, yay. I'm so excited that you're here. And let me tell people about our topic, and then I'm going to have you introduce yourself. So, our topic today is leaders who read, turning business books into action. And this is just so you. You're an action-oriented person. I love everything you do, Rebecca. So, can you just tell people who you are and what you do, and then we'll get stuck in.
Absolutely. So, first of all, thank you for having me, and good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you are, right? It's not rainy here, but it is very frosty. I think it was -4 was the record I saw on my phone throughout the day. So chilly, chilly, but lovely, glistening and Christmassy and stuff. So yes, who am I? So my name's Rebecca Wilson. I am actually in the process of pivoting my business to kind of focus on helping businesses get started with AI automation. So automating their core workflows and making clever, ethical use of AI. I am a big fan of learning, and one of my preferred choices or methods of learning is business books. And I have been doing a series called Business Book Bites, where I review a business book, or recommend is probably fairer, based on what I think makes a good business book. So it's kind of me in not quite a nutshell, but almost.
I love that. I love that. And to be honest, I would have to say anybody who's an author is probably going, "How do I get on your business book bites?" Because it's just such a fabulous thing. I've had the honor of, I didn't solicit you to review my book. You actually
No,
came to
no,
me and
no.
said, yeah, it's not like I slipped you $100 and said, "Here, do a
I wish
video
I'd
for
be
me."
rich if that was true.
But you have done some amazing books. I'm honored to be part of it, and I know so many of your other authors, and I don't know so many of the other authors. And I've often said to you, you keep me broke, because whenever I watch one of your videos, I immediately go, "I haven't read that book. I need to go to Amazon
Yeah,
and read that
straight to
book." So
Amazon. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, first of all, let's step back for people that don't know you and don't know the history of Business Book Bites. It's got a cute history. So, do you want to kind of just tell us why you even started running your YouTube channel in the first place?
Yeah, so I've always kind of been a fan of business books, and it was kind of when I started it was right when I was sort of starting my business and kind of working out what kind of content do I want to do, how does the world of content work and all that kind of stuff. And essentially what I worked out is, why don't I do content that I want? And one of the problems that I kind of saw with how a lot of people recommended books is they kind of said, I recommend XYZ by, Joe Blogs. And it's like, okay, well, how do I know if that's something that would be of interest to me, and where I'm at in my journey, in my world of what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to learn? And so I kind of came up with this template, I guess, of what I think makes a good business book, right? It kind of learn, think, action, impact. So it teaches me something. That's the first box I need to tick. It makes me think differently about something. It inspires me to take some kind of action, and then that action has some kind of impact. And I realized that any book that I categorize as a good book tick those four boxes. So essentially, with my content, with my weekly videos, I was looking to answer the question, should you read this book? And that's it.
Mm.
And hoping to help people decide, don't fancy that one based on what she said, or I do. I don't really put out any books. It's not really a review because I don't put out books that I don't like. I only kind of say books that I do like, that have helped, that have ticked those four boxes. And like you say, I try to mix it up with authors you've never ever heard of, and you're really big, people with massive marketing powerhouses behind them. So you get a variety of different stuff, all business books though.
I love that. I love that. And so can I ask you, how did you come up with your, template or formula? 'Cause I'm sure you didn't just get like, do that the first day. It's like you had to have a system, which in all fairness is what you do as a business. You're always about systems and having things, even the name of your company is Time Wisely, right? So it's
Yeah.
like everything about
Yeah,
that
that's how
is
it's a blessing and curse, right? My brain is a systems brain, and logic is in everything that I do, and absolutely it was. I mean, the it was about how do I. It didn't actually take me that long to come up with. It was about how do I capture. So first, I did the thinking on what do I think makes a good business book? Like why do I say this one is good and this one's not good? Like what are the key differences there? And I worked out the massive driving force was the impact, right? So sometimes you read a business
mm,
book and you go, oh, that's nice. Um, and that's it, right? But for me, it's like, could I do something? Did I change something? Da, da, da. And then this learn, think, action, impact, part of it came from what the boxes I had to tick, and part of it came from I really want these videos to be like 3 to 3.5 minutes long.
mm.
So my very first video I recorded that I didn't put out there, I had a really long introduction and a really long, it was like 20 minutes long. I was like, oh, this isn't going to work, is it? Which is why I came up with that formula. And the other side of the formula, of course, is it's really easy for me to read the book and turn out um, the video, because I know exactly what points I'm trying to hit. And it means that people who watch it know what's coming, they know what they're going to get. They know that's the type of way Rebecca reviews books, and they either like it or they don't. But at least they know what's coming, which I think is good too.
I love it, and I know that you get a lot of good feedback. People like your books. They like the way that you recommend the books because we can then see it through your eyes, and I love that you have that formula because I know exactly how you're going to do it, and as a video person myself, I think it's very wise to if you're gonna do something like what you've done, Rebecca, I think it's very good to have a system in place where you know you're gonna pop up this graphic
Yeah,
and you have it all arranged so you're not sitting there fiddling it and your
yeah,
timeliness transfers to us. So it's like we don't get fluff. You're not like, so well, one of
yeah,
the
blah blah
things
blah blah blah. Yeah,
there's
exactly.
no blah, blah, blah. There's no blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. I love that. So let me ask you, this is probably the killer question, but is how do you decide what books to read? Like, do you kind of have like a list and you're just like, okay, I have a list of all, and I keep adding to the list, or do you kind of go, which one will I do this week? I'm sure you have a system. So what do you do
Yeah, it's sort
for
of
that?
what's kind of like a two-part system. So there's books that people recommend to me. So that happens a lot because of my series, right? So there's a lot of books that people recommend to me. I also always try to read books from people that I know, because it's nice to support your network, right? And if I love them, then they come up on my show, on my videos. And then the other is very selfish. It's problems I want to solve. So it's either a specific, I want to know how to do XYZ, or I feel like I need to learn more about this area or adjacent areas. This book looks good in that category. Um, and that is, as you well know, right, as a business owner, there is thousands and thousands of different categories of stuff we know we don't know, or we don't know we don't know. So that's kind of how I get at it. And sometimes it's just it isn't a system at all. It's just it pops up on a recommendation on Amazon or something. And I go, okay. But what I am really ruthless with, and a lot of this will kind of hurt people's feelings a little bit, I'm afraid, for some people, but I am very ruthless with, I get a couple of chapters in and I'm not feeling it. Um, I'm not reading on. A lot of people kind of feel they have to read the whole book before they say no, but that's what I do, and that keeps me kind of, you know, keeps me a high pace of reading by doing that, because of course to push out so many videos. I'm sure we'll talk about how I've not done so many recently, but to push out so many videos, I need to read like twice as many books, right? Because a lot of them don't make the cut, and I don't want to recommend stuff I don't really believe in.
I agree. I agree 100%. It's like, if I don't have anything nice to say, I'd rather not say anything at all. And for me, if I'm
Yeah,
reading a book, if I have to push myself to read a book, I'll either say it's not the right time, and then I'll put it aside, and then
yeah,
I'll
that's
try
fine.
it again. And I've tried it again. And if I can't do it the second time, then I just go, this isn't for me. And I'm not the ideal reader for this book. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's not a diss on the book. It's just it's not a good match for me. And so I think we have to be honest, it's like, you shouldn't
yeah,
have to push yourself to read. There's so many books in
yeah,
so little time. That's my attitude.
yeah.
It's like,
And
there's
I'm a
so
big
many.
believer that a book, what's special about a book over any other method of learning is I feel like it's a conversation between you, well, between the author and you and your all of your thoughts that have come before you've read that book. And so sometimes it is just I'm not ready for this conversation, or I haven't got loose ends to tie up in this category, or I've already had this conversation. And so if any of those things are true, there's nothing wrong with the book in theory. It's just not the right time for you. And so I'm partly trying to get at that as well through my reviews, is kind of this is what it made me think differently about, and these are the lessons I took away. If you already know these lessons, no point reading this book. If you already think this way, no point reading this book. And hopefully that's helpful in a way too, right? Don't read this book is just as helpful as do read this book.
I love that. I love that. So, out of all the books that you've reviewed, is there one that
Mhm.
you'd say this was like really had the biggest impact for me out of all the books that you've done?
Yeah, so there's a few sort of depends what category of my life you're talking about.
Mhm.
But there is a couple that are like I just find myself recommending over and over and over again. So the standout one is Switch by Chip and Dan Heath,
Mm,
which is about change management is kind of the base topic, but it's about how to kind of get people on board with your ideas, why people don't get on board with your ideas, all of the kind of ways that you need to message to kind of go after people's logic, people's emotion, make sure you show people the way. And I read that book many years ago, back in my corporate days, and it made me recognize I can't just make Excel spreadsheets and cool tools. I need to work out how the people operate, and I just completely shifted my whole people are at the center of everything, and that's what I need to be working on. And I truly think it actually changed the trajectory of my career, that book. And I still use the stuff all the time in my current work. So that would be my one standout book for sure.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And 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 I love that it had impact on you. The very fact that
Massive
it had it,
impact.
yeah,
Yeah.
great impact on you. So that's awesome. So I'm going to hop over to comments for a second, but then I want to come back and I want to talk
Right.
more about your process of reading and how you're doing it in a timely manner, because I know you're a busy mom. So that's I want to know about that. I want to know about that. So let me go over to the comments and we'll check in on our friends who showed up today. So we have the lovely Jeff Young, who is joining us from
Oh,
YouTube.
hello.
Looking forward to this conversation, Gillian and Rebecca. Namaste. So thank you for being here. And then I love Jeff. He hops right over to LinkedIn. So he is always
Oh,
my
bless you.
cue that I'm streaming on both platforms and everything's working today. So again, nice to see two
Good.
business
We're
book
good.
mavens together. And like, what a nice thing to be known for. It's like, because at the end of the day,
It's a
that's what I
perfect.
love about you, Rebecca, is that you have a passion for books. And I love that that
I do.
comes out. And I'm right there with you. I love books too. So
Yeah, I know.
book lovers love book lovers. Let's just, well, just be honest. Book lovers love book honors. So we have the
That's
lovely Sarah Burgess joining us. Evening, Rebecca and Jillian, or Jillian and Rebecca, however I read it. I read it dyslexic today. I don't know why, but thank you, Sarah, for being here. And she's such a fun person. And she
yeah.
was in my little video reel this morning too. So it was great. And another one, we have Tina, who is joining us from Belgium, and she is greetings from Brussels. And so I believe you did a book review on Tina. Did you? Yeah. For That's great. That's great. And Jeff Young, you did a book review for Jeff Young too. So you got your fans showing up today. Every second of Rebecca's review is valuable. No fluff, no blah,
Nice.
blah, blah. I think that could be your new hashtag. No blah, blah, blah.
No blah blah blah.
You heard
No
it here
ums.
first.
I'm good
You
at
did.
not doing ums anymore too.
There we go. There we go. So we have the wonderful Kevin D.
New York
Turner, who's
City.
who's like out and about in New York City, but he stopped off to drop into the live and say hello. So that's just amazing that he's doing that. So he's out of Texas. It's like all of Texas is going, Kevin's left the building.
Yeah.
And he's off in New York. And we're just envisioning him with a cowboy hat, like Midnight Cowboy, walking around New York City this week. So that's great. Thank you for being here. Yay, yay. And he says, heading into the MoMA. I'm thinking that's the Modern
Museum
Museum
of
of
Modern Art, is it?
Museum of Modern Art. That has to be it. So I guess they give the O of an
The
O. So
Mauve.
yeah, because
Oh,
otherwise
it would
it's
be
mama.
ma.
It just makes sense. So yay, that's nice. I'm glad he's vacationing because that's good. When you're going to New York, you might as well see all the sights. So Sarah says, such a good point about the books maybe are not
Yeah.
right for that time in your life. Absolutely. There's been some books and and I think I'm gonna love it. And I go to read it and it's just like it's just I struggle with it.
Yeah.
And then I know it's,
Yeah, move
really,
on.
yeah,
Yeah,
just move
move
on. And
on.
yet
Life's too
I could
short.
come back and then it's like absolutely wonderful.
It's
And I
amazing. Yeah.
especially find that
Yeah.
with fiction books that like I have to be in a certain mood for fiction. I will go ages without reading a fiction book because actually my preference is I like nonfiction. I prefer nonfiction,
Yeah,
but
same. I don't read any fiction.
yeah, so it's just kind of weird. Your brain works one way or the other, I guess. So, and so Sarah says, I found that some of the books on our business
Yeah, I
book
found that
club.
with some of the books from our business book. Yeah, so we do a business book club together, and I think she's referring to the fact that some of them are not the right time in her life.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's a hard thing. And I know, like, if you're part of a book club, and you didn't like the book, it's always
yeah,
kind of
that's
hard.
hard.
You're
It's
like,
like, oh,
you're
how do
like,
I say
okay,
nice things?
yeah, what do I do? What do I do? So that's always hard. Karen says, I am listening in from the United States. So I
Yes,
believe that Karen is coming in from New York. So I think she's always in
to New
Dutchess, New
Yorkers.
York, which always sounds so elegant. It sounds like such an elegant place in the United States to be. So that's wonderful. And we have the lovely John
Gotcha.
Asperian just popping in. Lovely to see you both live. I'll catch up on the replay tomorrow. He likes listening to the audios. He likes listening to the podcast. So, speaking of audio, that's my lead in of the question that I wanted to ask you. So, I know, like with me, my preference is to read a book in my hands, but because of my digital lifestyle, I actually end up having to read more books on Kindle than any
Yeah.
other place. But I also like to listen to audiobooks in the car. So I'm like a try person. I read three different ways. So, Rebecca, with your busy lifestyle, tell me how you're doing most of your reading.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's my hack too is Audible. So I just would not get through the books. I very, very often listen and then get the hard copy because listening, what's really difficult about listening is obviously like taking notes in any kind of sensible capacity.
Mm,
So what I was doing, which is part of the reason why, if anyone is following my series, there's been a little break. I have been. I would usually listen to it on the dog walks. So my wonderful husky Akira, I'm afraid, is no longer with us,
mm,
and she had a battle with cancer. And so I wasn't doing as many walks. I wasn't doing as fast walks, and I couldn't. She wasn't on autopilot. I had to pay attention to her, bless her. Which is why I've kind of massively reduced the number of books I've been reading or listening to recently. But I'm very much hoping to get back to it in the new year. And I think for me, I understand why a lot of people say they don't love listening to audiobooks because it's harder to follow along. And I agree with that for some books. But I think in this day and age, people are recognizing people listen to them. So they're doing much better signposting through the books to make it a bit easier for you to follow along. There is a lot of people ask me about these read a book in 15-minute services,
Mm,
like Headspace, I think is one, and Blinkist is one. I don't love those. In fact, I don't really like them, I'm being polite. And the reason is you don't get that conversation thing that I was talking about. And I feel like a lot of what I get out of a book isn't what would be written as the chapter titles, which is what these summary things give you, but much more like, that connected with an idea I already had, and that story that you told made me think of this other thing. That's how those two pieces of the world connect together, and you just don't get that from the summaries, in my opinion. Everyone's different. um, but yeah, so that's why, people have said to me, why don't you? And people have actually even said to me, why don't you just, because I have the ability to, why don't you just completely automate the whole thing? Why don't you just
mm.
not even bother reading the book and just get it to churn out your script for your video? And I was like, I would never, ever, ever do that. That is not the point. I recognize, given what I do in my work, I could do that. I have the ability to create that kind of an automation, but that's not the point. That doesn't get you the learning. The whole point is the learning, the action, the impact, as we
Exactly.
talked about.
And I don't think you would retain the lessons, because it's like I think the reason why I like reading so much is because I slowly absorb it, and I feel like it's
Yeah,
particles. Particles are coming into me, coming into my brain, and I know when I get to a point where, especially if I'm reading something that I really want to learn, like not just it'd be nice to learn, but like I need to understand
yeah,
this.
yeah,
I can only read in like bits, and then all of a sudden I go, okay, I can't absorb anymore, so I have to stop. Even though I'm really, really enjoying this, I just feel like, okay, right now I have to let this roll around in my head and synthesize it. And like you said too, I love the stories. And so when that's, I think probably why Seth Godin is one of my favorite authors, because he always has stories and backstories of the backstories. And I
yeah,
remember those stories, and I remember the lesson because of those stories. Whereas, like you said, if you were just doing you know, we used to call them Cliff's Notes or Cole's Notes back in
yeah,
Canada, I
exactly.
think they're
Yeah,
called. They don't give you the stories. They just give you it's like a skeleton of the book. And how would you remember a skeleton of a book? You just,
yeah. I always think of it too as like the knowledge that you've got is like lots of threads, kind of floating. And when you read a book, you every so often you find a thread that you can tie onto another thread. And then you've got, a stronger piece of knowledge, a more intricate piece of knowledge. And I feel like that happens not in the words. It happens when you've read a sentence or listened to a sentence, and then you go, take your eyes off the page and think and remember a thing that's happened to you or your own stories, right? And you're weaving that in. That's this kind of idea of having a conversation with the book. You can't do that with a summary because it's very dry. It's very, here are the facts, here are the points. And you don't have enough time to like breathe and react and, like you would in a conversation, which is why I think books are incredibly special. I actually think they're massively underpriced for what you get. But
I
I'm not
agree.
complaining because I don't really afford much more.
Well, and I
Compared
know,
to courses
yeah,
or anything.
exactly. And like there's been some people that I've wanted to work with, but their program was like out of my budget. I couldn't afford
Yeah,
that. But I'll
exactly.
turn around and I'll go spend, $30 on a book and think
Yeah,
nothing of it,
easily.
because it's like
Yeah,
sometimes if I attended the workshop, I get the same information, and I would actually rather process it in a book, because then I
yeah.
can go slower at my own pace. So I want to ask you a question. Do you highlight? Are you a highlighter? Do you take notes? Like, are you one of those people you write in books, or is like, oh, sacrilegious,
Yeah,
never
so
write in
so
a book?
my system's actually changed. So I used to be, I never have been a highlighter. I used to be a penciler, so an underline with pencil. Now these days, with how clever things are, I take a photo, and it transcribes it and adds it automatically to my notes, which I use Notion for my notes world. These days, AI can read, I can't remember what it's called. The acronym's not coming for me, but essentially it can read a photograph and transcribe
OCR or
it into
something?
photo. Yeah,
Is
it's
it
something like that. I forget the
optical character
term.
recognition or something like
Yeah,
that?
well done. You know it better than me. But yeah, that's what I do now because then it's in my notes. It's findable. And in this day and age, I'm afraid, as much as I love paper notes because it's just much more, just feels much better. Having a digital brain is the only way I've managed to actually keep on top of all of my notes. So that's what I do now.
That's good.
But that means I need I don't. It's funny because a lot of people say, "Well, about Kindle," and I do sometimes get the Kindle version, but I actually weirdly find it harder to like highlight the notes and take. And actually, most of my Kindle books are like highlighted in there, but I've not actually then grabbed those and put them anywhere else. Weirdly. So I'm a much bigger fan of the physical, but it's, you need to be careful because every time you move house, it's like boxes.
Yes. Yes. I recently saw a tip on doing what's called visual note taking. And what they do is they just basically get like a journal, and they have a journal for their book notes, but then they draw pictures of like what they're learning, and
Mm,
they kind of make it sort of like Tina, like a sketch note. And,
yeah,
they draw pictures and ideas, and then it's like the whole book summary on one piece of paper. And I thought, well, that's kind of a cool way to, take notes.
yeah,
But
that
but
is cool.
I think that's kind of the one thing about audiobooks. The audiobooks I don't retain because I don't ever write things down when I'm doing an audiobook. It's like you, I I know too the pain of losing a dog, and my heart goes out to you, Rebecca, for that one, because I used to do all my listening with my dog Max, and it's when you don't have a dog, you don't you don't walk like that anymore.
Yeah,
It's just heartbreaking. But that was always the thing with audiobooks. It was just like I'm listening, so I can't really do anything on my phone because I'm listening unless I can multitask on my phone. That to me is the downside of the audiobooks. I don't take notes when I'm doing audiobooks.
yeah. What I do to get around that is I stop it and I voice note myself. And again, I've set up an automation that takes the voice note, transcribes it, and adds it to my Notion notes. But of course, that's I recognise that it's because of the world that I operate in that I get to build all of these cool little things. For most people, that wouldn't really be possible. But I think you can on some phones. You can get transcribed notes and stuff pretty automatically. But
Yeah.
yeah, I hear you. It's much harder to pause, and it's what's really hard is finding again.
Mm.
So what chapter was that? Because on the thing it says chapter 7, but in the book it's chapter 3 or whatever. It doesn't always quite match. But I think people are getting more wise to the audio. It feels like audio is coming out at the same time as the physical copy a lot more. And it is better signposted and all, however
Yep.
they have to send the files in. It seems people are doing a bit better, but yeah, I hear you for
I
sure.
I agree. I agree. So, with regards to when you're doing your book reviews, I'm just thinking that your process really could be something that if people wanted to do more Amazon reviews for authors, that could be a good thing, because I know that's probably the hardest part for an author is like, okay, people never write reviews, and you just hope. But I think what it is that a lot of people are just like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to organize my thoughts.
Yeah,
And if you're putting your thoughts down on Amazon, if you don't feel confident with how you write a review, you're like, oh, it's there for all eternity, and I look stupid. It's just like it's
yeah,
it's stressful. But I think that like if they were to take sort of your formula, with what you use in your business book bites, that's something that somebody could say, well, I could do the same thing, but make it on Amazon, and maybe you do what you do. You,
yeah,
you could do an audio review and then have it transcribed, copy and paste, and put it to Amazon,
yeah,
and you're done.
yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly. Or answer different questions. For me, it's learn, think, action, impact, but maybe for someone else, it's did this entertain me, or did
mm,
this, did it have fun stories? Did it have a nice mix of facts and stories? Did it, don't know, a whole bunch of different things. And I think, yeah, sitting down, saying, uh, writing questions to yourself and then answering them is a really easy formula. And I do actually post my videos onto Amazon, but used to be about 50% would make it. Now about 20% make it. I have no idea what the criteria is. I have no idea why some get declined. Absolutely none. But I do post them on there, especially if I don't really post them for the big Seth Godin, for example. I wouldn't bother posting for him because he's obviously doesn't need any help. But
Right.
any of the kind
For
of
the
less
indie
I know
authors?
independents, yeah, I do. But like I say, not all of them get through, and I can't control it. I'm afraid I have no idea what I'm doing wrong, and for it not to get through.
Yeah,
It'll
I
be a
think
word or something I
yeah,
say doesn't like, or it thinks
Amazon
I'm promoting it or something.
yeah, I think Amazon's just getting picky, and it's very frustrating. I always recommend to
It'll
people
be automated, won't it? It'll be automatically saying yes or no. It'll be taking my words and saying, "Oh no, she said something we didn't like" or something.
yeah,
Is what I'm guessing, but I don't know.
yeah, it's frustrating, it's frustrating. So I always recommend people, it's like, if you write your review, make sure you have it written down so that if it does get bounced and you
Yeah,
want to try again, then you can just copy and
copy and
paste and
paste.
maybe
Yeah, and tweak.
change some
Yeah.
of the words, so that's good. Okay, so, we're getting to the end of our
I'm sorry. Well,
time.
gosh, so we are.
Yes, yes, it's and I just saw, like, one pop up here. It was from Tina. She says, "I love the bookshelves behind you. It's the best tip to make a good first
Oh,
impression
that's a
during
good
a
idea.
job interview." So that was a really nice little tip from
Genius.
Tina. And then Jeff says, "Having the ability to search for ideas in a book has become key for me too, Rebecca. Having a Kindle version helps me
Yeah,
with that."
there
So,
you go.
yeah, that's another good thing. So, is there any final words of wisdom that you have for being a leader who reads? Just any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with everybody before we say
So,
goodbye?
yeah, so one thing I would say, in terms of reading business books, I think it's really easy to fall into the trap of just reading as many as you possibly can. And I think what's much more important is to implement. So to take the advice, the one piece, the 10 pieces, whatever from the book, and try them and see if they have impact. I kind of feel like there's a lot of people who think the problem will be solved by reading the book. And I'm afraid it's not solved unless you take the action. So I think you're far better rereading one book for an entire year and taking action than you are reading 365 books and not taking any action. As cool as it is to have so many books behind you, it's what really matters is the actions you take and the impact it has. So that would be my advice.
That's wonderful. I love that. Okay. Homework for all of us. Take better action. Take action. Okay, I love that. Well, thank you very much for being here, Rebecca. Thank you for everybody who joined us on the live, who will be listening to the podcast. And I just hope everybody will continue to read, to lead, and this holiday season coming in, get some good books and make
Yeah,
2025 a good one. Okay.
yeah,
All right. Bye,
fantastic.
everybody.